This is going to be a short, sort of extra video on the sticks and stones method, which is a very standard trick in combinatorics or counting, discrete maths, whatever. And as you can see, it's done on very low budget. You can see me in the reflection right there. So the general statement of the problem is as follows. I got a bit carried away there. So suppose we have n balls, and I want to distribute these n balls into k different baskets. The question is, how many ways are there that I can do so? Right, that's pretty much it, the standard question. In the main video, you'll see that this is pretty much the exact problem that we're trying to answer. For the purpose of this sample, I want to make the actual example a bit more concrete. So I will give n and k, the number of balls, the number of baskets, an actual number. So I'm going to suppose that we have, in this case, we have 7 balls, and I'm going to suppose we have 4 baskets. This is just for concreteness and for a bit easier for the examples to be given. I will generalize this eventually later on in the video. So for example, let's give an example of a configuration that we might have. If I have 4 baskets and 7 balls, first example I might have, say for example, I might have 2 balls in this basket, or I might have 3 in here, and then I'll have 1 in the other 2, for example, right? Or if I'm feeling a bit brave, maybe I'll say I want to have all my 7 balls in one basket, none in the other, right? Or I might have 1 ball in each of these, and then the rest of the balls in the last basket. But you sort of get the idea of what we're after here, right? So the question is, how many ways are there that we can do that, right? Considering that the balls are all the same and the position of the baskets are different, meaning that it's different to have 4 balls here and rest of the ones here, compared to say having 4 balls here and the rest of them being 1. So which baskets have how many number of balls will matter, just that which particular ball doesn't really matter. So here's how you can solve the problems. I'll redraw out this 7 balls out like this. Actually, I want to give it a little bit more space, so like this, right? 4, 5, 6 and 7. So now we have 7 balls. Now, it's pretty difficult to imagine the balls actually going into baskets. So what we're going to do instead is I am going to come up with markers. Now, what these markers do, these markers would just be a single line. For example, a line like this, a line like this, and maybe a line like this, right? So the purpose of these markers is to tell you to partition the balls into each of the baskets, right? So basically, from the front to the first line is how many balls we're going to put into the first basket, for example, and the second partition between the first and the second line will be how many balls are put into the second basket, and then no balls go into the third basket, and then like that, right? And then the last partition going into the last basket. So for example, for this particular partitioning, 2 balls go in the first basket, 2 in the second, none in the third, and then 3 of them into the fourth basket. And I could maybe do a configuration. Maybe I'll say I want to have something like this instead, right? This is another valid configuration. So this means I have 2 in the first basket, 4 in the second, 1 in the third, and none of them in the fourth, right? Because there's nothing between this last partition and the last invisible element or whatever, right? And so we can see that now we can put these partitions in any position we want, between any of the balls we want. So if we think of these partitions here as individual objects as well, this problem becomes, how many ways can I rearrange this set of balls and this set of partitions? How many ways I can rearrange it, right? And this becomes a lot more simple combinatorics problems that we have, right? So first question is, how many partitions are there? Well, if I have 4 baskets, the number of partitions will be 3, right? Because I don't consider that this beginning edge or this ending edge here. I'm only considering each of the partitions. You can think of these partitions roughly the walls of the baskets. You can think of these black things as something that separates these two, this section here, right? That's really rough, right? But basically, we all have, for this case, because we have 4 baskets, we'll have 4 minus 1, or 3 different partitions, right? And we'll have 7 balls. And so the question becomes, how many ways can I rearrange the 7 balls and 3 partitions? And If all of these objects are distinct or all different from each other, then the number of ways would be 7 plus 4 minus 1 factorial. I mean, it's 10 factorial, but I'm going to write this out for a bit more clarity. 7 because there's 7 balls, and 4 minus 1 because there's 4 baskets, so there's only 4 minus 1 or 3 partitions. But now, all these objects, they're not unique, right? So we have 7 balls, which are like the same, and so I have to divide this by 7 factorial, right? So I can rearrange all these 7 balls in any of the ways I want, which means that the numbers must reduce by 7. But at the same time, these partitions are all considered to be the same, right? Because if I swap these two partitions are ultimately just like markers, right? So they're not indicating any particular baskets or anything. So I also have to divide by the number of partitions that we have factorial, right? And so that becomes, this is, if you realize this is just the Shoes function, or the binomial distribution, binomial coefficient, sorry. So this becomes like saying 7 plus 4 minus 1 Shoes 7, right? And this is for this particular example. I'm not going to go into much details about how you can generalize it, but from here it should be pretty clear. You can see that the total number of ways that we have should be the number of balls, which is n, plus the number of baskets, which is k, minus 1 Shoes number of balls, or Shoes n. So this would be the answer to this particular problem, but this is in a general form, right? And so hopefully that helps. I guess if you pause the original video to watch this, you could go back to the original video now. It's going to get really heated in a second. So yeah.